Homes in Stevenson Ranch. People are evacuating as firefighters attack the flames from the air and the ground. Good evening. I'm Peter Dowd.
And I'm Elsa Ramon. That fire is burning near the Old Road and Cal Grove Boulevard, just west of the 5 freeway.
Yeah, we're on fire watch. CBS 2's Greg Bills is live at the scene with new information on just how many homes are threatened. Greg?
And Peter and Elsa, about 250 homes evacuated. This neighborhood was told to leave about 15 minutes ago. This is Hazel Crest Lane, runs parallel to the 5 freeway. Give you an idea where we're at here in Stevenson Ranch. That is Pico Canyon Road. That's as you're coming up the 5, you come through the Newhall Pass and you're heading towards Stevenson Ranch. That's the place that has McDonald's and In-N-Out, all those fast food places. You mentioned all the people being told to leave right now. As you can see over here, a lot of cars, trailers, RVs along here, boats, because people are leaving right now in this neighborhood. Other areas were told to evacuate earlier. Now look up in the trees right here to your right. You will see some wind. This has been the big problem all day. We're going to give you a shot now from Sky 2, and you'll see this fire. Now, I was talking to some LA County Fire Department firefighters about 2 hours ago, and they were telling me 450 acres, unofficially, 450 acres had burned. And again, that was about 2 hours ago. So this thing has really gobbled up a lot of acreage. And one big problem is that wind I saw you in the tree, showed you in the trees, that's causing problems because the terrain very hilly, very rugged. So firefighters really can't get to it except from the air. And folks who have had to evacuate, well, it's a pretty alarming day for them.
Traumatic.
Steve Little and his family moved into this home in Stevenson Ranch 6 months ago. With the sage fire racing through hundreds of acres of very dry brush and headed this way, the Littles worried they might lose their home.
All of a sudden the sheriff came by and said, you need to get whatever you have and put it in the car and get out of here.
This fire started around noon, close to the 5 freeway on the Stevenson Ranch side of the Newhall Pass. Strong winds pushed it toward houses here in the hills.
Never been through this before, so it was obviously an emotional experience.
A couple miles away in the older section, Sunset Point, people remember the devastating fire in 2003.
We've been through this before, unfortunately. It's part of having the view.
A view that today showed the firefight mostly coming from the air because the terrain is just too rugged, firefighters said. Water dropping helicopters aiming for hot spots. Fire retardant dropped along the perimeter. The biggest problem is that wind. It keeps whipping up hot spots that grow quickly. Jessica Leone was planning to leave shortly after we talked to her.
My neighbor came and knocked on the door and said, you better get your stuff out.
As for the Littles, they did leave when told to do so. But Steve just had to come back.
I just had to know. I had to know if it was going to go, if the house was going to go up or not go out. We're ready to go at any moment if it starts coming back over that ridge again.
As mentioned, they have been fighting this thing mostly from the air today. DC-10 dropping the FOS check. In fact, Steve Little, the man that you just heard from, he told us he got blanketed by the FOS check, hadn't washed it off yet, but a new experience for him. And now we're going to show you some more video from Sky 2. As mentioned, this fire has been fought primarily from the air. The DC-10 dropping the FOS check and the water-dropping helicopters. The big problem, Elsa and Peter, when we got out here about 1:30, maybe even a little before that, it looked like the fire was pretty much out. The problem was the wind kept whipping up these hot spots, and in this vegetation, which is so dry and hasn't burned for many years, you would see some flames just pop up and take off for a while, then get under control because they'd have the helicopter like that one come over, drop some water on it, and take care of the little hot spots. But the hot spots just kept growing and growing. And here we are now. They're telling more and more people to leave their homes in Stevenson Ranch. So definitely a situation which just is not as under control as it appeared to be maybe 2 or 3 hours ago, just because of the wind that we have as the fire keeps on spreading here in Stevenson Ranch. Back to you.
All right, Greg, thanks. And as Greg just mentioned, this has been a pretty difficult fight for fire crews because of that wind and all the dry vegetation.
Joining us live on the phone is Captain Roland Struhl with the LA County Fire Department. Captain, a lot of fuel out there. We've been in a drought for at least 5 years. That is tough terrain to get to, and I'm sure a lot of vegetation has not been cleared out in years. How much of a problem is this going to be going into the night?
Elsa, Peter, good evening, and good evening, everyone. Yes, the battle continues at this hour as we try and get a line around this brush fire. In terms of going forward and into the evening, this is likely to go much like we see a number of our brush fires go. Unfortunately, you're going to see additional operational periods with more resources on the way, even as we speak, to this brush fire. Right now, as you've already reported, as Greg has been reporting, 450 acres is where we're at right now with zero containment. We've got a number of areas that have been evacuated at this time. 200 plus firefighters on the scene right now, 100 homes threatened and in the path of the fire right now. We are getting assistance from a number of agencies, including the Los Angeles Fire Department, Ventura Fire Department, and the Angeles National Forest, and a number of other resources, air assets, and so forth. So we've definitely got our work cut out for us for the next couple of hours, and with the wind, and most of the wind that you are seeing right now is in the canyons right now, the fire creating a little bit of its own climate, and then we have the canyon winds right now. And as you look at your static shots, you won't see a whole lot of wind blowing the trees around, but we definitely have winds in the canyon. The fire is creating its own climate at this particular time, and that is definitely causing us a challenge.
And Captain, the folks who live there say they haven't seen anything like this since 2003. Do you think that this could be just as devastating as that fire was?
Well, we've had a number of fires in and around the Santa Clarita area since 2003. We had a pretty significant season in 2007 as well. So perhaps those people may be new to the area, but at this particular time, judging from the vegetation, and I'm looking on your screen just as you are looking on your screen, the vegetation, as you already indicated, we're in a 5-year drought at this time. We have medium or moderate brush right now. It's moving at a moderate rate of speed. There are patchy areas that it will get into where you have a lack of fuel continuity, and that factors in a huge way in terms of how intense this fire will burn. And then you have areas where the fuel continuity and the fuel arrangement is a lot more compact, and you have the type of the intense burning that you're now seeing on your screen right now. So definitely, as we go forward here, we're looking for a little bit cooler weather. The reduction of heat is going to give us some assistance, and hopefully, as we go forward tonight, we'll get a little bit of moisture recovery, and that will give us some assistance as well as we try and get this fire under control.
Captain, during the day, it was pretty warm out there in the Santa Clarita Valley. What was the rehab situation like for the firefighters out there? I know you have 200 plus, you said, right now. That could change if the fire grows, but with the heat and the amount of gear they have on them, if they're fighting down close to the lines, how often do you have to rehab them out?
Well, there are a lot of factors to that. You know, a lot of it depends on the agency. A lot of it depends on what I should say is a lot of it depends on the agency, and it depends on different types of policies in terms of when they're going to rehab and that sort of thing. But for the most part, we'll try and rotate crews in there on a regular basis and try and provide relief and breaks to the crews that are on those hillsides and so forth. And so they're not completely exhausted, and then we'll rotate them back in.
And Captain, do you think the evacuation could grow? Or, you said 100 homes are threatened right now. Do you see that being worse as we go on? All right, I think we may have just lost our connection with Captain Roland Struhl from the LA County Fire Department. We're going to continue to follow this story and get more information throughout the day. At this point, we know 450 acres burned, at least 100 homes threatened. Again, firefighters saying that the wind, the rugged and dry terrain is a major problem right now, zero containment. But as you can see right now, it just appears that these flames continue to grow. At this point, no structures have been damaged and there are no reports of injuries. But we will continue to follow this from Sky 2. We'll continue to give you updates right here and also on our website, cbsla.com.
So we talked about